Sideline Squib. It's a long time coming. Steve, Andrew, what say you? This is the sideline, huh? Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the sideline, huh? Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the Squib, info stick up to your ribs. Chips be coming with that dip. Go ahead, put it to your lips. My oh my, that is delish. Victory gon' taste like this. Y'all bought that big old boat, but these boys built you a bridge. Sit down and take notes. If you want you a trophy.
Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Squib. I'm your host, Steve Silvestri, back with co-host Andrew Lehigh with Week 2 NFL picks and bricks. Andrew, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. The first week is out of the way, and now we have a little bit of data, a little bit of film to kind of go over, a little bit of stuff to make us feel more warm and fuzzy about our picks in Week 2.
Yeah, I love it. We finally have some things to go off of. You know, we were going off a little bit of the non-preseason we had, a little bit of stats we had last year, what we saw as far as matchups, and we turned out okay. As far as picks and bricks went, we'll get into how we did last week and what we see this week. But before we get started, a little bit of NFL news from around the league. It looks like Michael Thomas has been ruled out, as well as Chris Godwin. So do you see any upside to the Saints or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with those two star-studded receivers being out this week?
There's a lot of injuries in the NFL already in Week 1. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, obviously, and then you had some, like you said, the wide receiver situation is not good in the NFC South. I read something I don't have it in front of me, and I feel bad about it because I wanted to really touch on this more along the lines of DFS, but the same kind of rules can apply when you're setting your weekly lineups. Chasing the second wide receiver that everyone assumes is going to all of a sudden see an increase in role because of the injury to the wide receiver one is a fool's errand. And more times than not, it's actually a bust. So if you were already planning on playing Mike Evans is already your wide receiver one, go ahead and fire him up. You know what I mean? Like that's not what I'm saying here. But chasing Scott Miller or chasing Emmanuel Sanders or Traquan Smith it could work out and you could look like a genius. But I think on a season-long redraft or dynasty league, I would rather – I always want to chase upside when I'm drafting, but I do that with the idea of I'm going to be playing the safest floor with upside on a week-to-week basis. If you are in a situation where you find yourself needing to play Traquan Smith or Scotty Miller or Justin Watson, players like that, highly recommend slotting them into the flex position if they're a late start so that you can kind of at least pivot off of that to a higher floor player if you're in the lead. And conversely, if you're trailing late in the Sunday games, you can pivot to them if you need the upside play to take over the week.
Yeah, and streaming is definitely a tactic that needs to be used on a week-to-week basis. But in most dynasty leagues, if you're going to stream, you have better streamers on your bench or your taxi squad than you're going to find on a waiver wire in a normal-sized league anyway. So I think I'm with you on that one as well. I'm not going to chase something like a Scotty Miller this week either, with Chris Godwin being out. If anything, I think that boosts the running back situation.
Yeah, Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is
Fournette.
Yeah.
So
Ronald Jones.
Jonathan Taylor looks to be set for the workhorse running back this week now that Marlon Mack tore his Achilles. What do you think there? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. In DFS, he's going to be super chalky, but that's okay. In a weekly scenario, especially Dynasty, Jonathan Taylor is a very intriguing play, depending on what your running back depth situation is. But running back depth is already taking hits. If you were a zero running back, Steve, if you were a zero running back guy in startup drafts or in drafts this year, I saw a tweet earlier that was talking about you would have been feeling really well if you started off Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin in a zero wide receiver or a zero running back scenario. And now you'd be looking at without either of those and not a top tier running back. So hopefully you would have landed Jonathan Taylor something along those lines, at least in the third or fourth round. I like that. I like it a lot. I think the passing volume is actually going to be there quite a bit for Jonathan Taylor and the Colts in general. So I'm attacking the secondary personally when it comes to the Vikings. I did not like what I saw versus the Packers. The Packers had one guy to stop, one, and they could not even come remotely close to doing so.
Yeah, all three of their receivers put up touchdowns, high value fantasy points as well. And my little zero running back strategy is kind of biting in the foot, especially in a Scott Fish Bowl where my zero running back strategy turned into my first running back being Damian Williams. So I'm sitting there, my receivers, Mike Evans, Kenny Golladay, really yet to see the field. I'm not doing too hot. But here's something that I know is going to spark you a little bit. Hopefully the offensive line can turn it around a little bit. They got dashed by Washington football team. Let me change my mind there. The Washington football team. Miles Sanders is back.
It's officially Miles Sanders season.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Is he going to be a play this week against LA?
Oh, you're firing him up. You got to fire him up. There's no one else to catch a football. That's the issue. That's a reliable target outside of the tight ends. And personally, I prefer Goddard right now. I watched a lot of these Eagles snaps here last week or so, and Goddard is the tight end to own. Ertz had that nice touchdown early on, really kind of saves his game. Goddard is one to own, but Miles Sanders coming back into the fold. They got away from the run game, which I don't really understand why they did, and I think that will be a very concerted effort towards the game plan this week. I understand Aaron Donald's on the other side of the football field, other side of the line, and that he's going to be a game wrecker. But I think the way to combat that is with quick passes, getting your running back out in space, mismatch over on the linebacker. So Miles Sanders, I think, if you drafted Miles Sanders where you had to draft him at, he has to be in the starting lineup this week. Has to be, especially with all the injuries everywhere else.
Yeah, I can see that too. And with Aaron Donald, that beat up offensive line, they're going to need to get the ball out of Carson Wentz.
They do get Lane Johnson back, which is huge.
Just doesn't look like himself. I think he's pressing a lot more, and we'll get into that once we get into our picks and bricks here a little bit later. But how did you fare last week with your picks and bricks, and kind of what are we looking at going? What's our game plan and goals going into this week?
Yeah, so I didn't really even I didn't take a really hard look at the actual picks and bricks air quoting results, because what we try to do is try to find guys that we're going to finish in the top 12 of their position, especially quarterback, because of how deep that is. And you can stream quarterback in most leagues. So you want to find one. If we're giving advice on them starting, we want to make sure that we're saying they're going to for sure finish in the top 12. I missed on Teddy Bridgewater. So I don't have it in front of me, but I'm 99% sure he did not finish in the top 12 at his position. So that is a swing and a miss. And then I bricked Daniel Jones. So I'm pretty sure I missed on both at quarterback position. Running back Todd Gurley was in a good situation, especially early on. And for whatever reason, they got away from it as well. I'm not sure where he ultimately finished, but he would have been safe enough to play. He had a decent enough game with a touchdown.
What happened? What happened in Atlanta, man?
Too. I think the issue, and they got the lead jumped out in front of them. Seattle jumped out in front of them quite a bit, and so they relied heavily on the pass, which we already knew that was going to be an issue if that was the case with Todd Gurley. So they have too many good pass catchers to be focusing on Todd Gurley. So if that's the case moving forward with Atlanta, that's going to be a struggle unless it's Todd Gurley getting the inside the 5 carries, which he should be doing. And that's what the last 2 years, that's what he's been based on. His fantasy value has been reliant on the touchdowns, which have come in bunches.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes for him is to get a PI in the end zone, from any of the Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and bam, he can just plow it in and get that.
Julio Jones doesn't score touchdowns, so
right.
You pretty much have that going for you. But no, I think Todd Gurley will continue to be a safe floor guy. It's gonna really struggle with the upside, just because they have so many other weapons. That's gonna be very, very difficult for him to have a 7-catch game or something ridiculous. So Antonio Gibson, that was an easy fade for me, and he absolutely delivered on the brick selection. Robert Woods. I almost put Robert Woods in this week's picks because Robert Woods is the safest floor wide receiver you are going to find from a week-to-week standpoint. He is clearly the wide receiver to own in LA, and I think that'll continue to be the case. Cooper Kupp is really nice, and Cooper Kupp seems to be used quite more often, at least in week 1, when they're in 12 personnel versus what it was looking like at the end of last year. But I think Robert Woods, and he just signed that big deal for him, is going to be a focal point for LA.
Yeah. I actually I like the situation in LA against the Philly defense this week. Coming up, we all saw what Washington did to them coming down the stretch there, coming back from a 17-point deficit. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge week in and week out. It's a challenge for all of us to set these lineups and to get our lineups how we want it, to be that good fantasy owner on a week-to-week basis. And, there's a lot of things that we have to look at. We had no preseason. We're going off of stats and film and everything else from the previous season. And we're trying to base off of what we think the defenses are going to do with all the coaching schemes and everything that has changed, throughout the NFL from 2019 to 2020. But one thing I like that gives us a challenge, and Andrew, Dynasty Owner. Dynasty Owner is one of those leagues that you don't have to sit back and do anything. There's so many different strategies in Dynasty Owner that you can exploit the different rosters and different owners within the league, and that's why I play Dynasty Owner. It's a challenge week in, week out, and it adds more of a concept. It adds more of that business-minded ownership to being a fantasy player. Dealing with contracts and salaries puts it above and beyond anything else. So if you're interested, I think leagues are still forming, so swing over to dynastyowner.com/squib and sign up today. Try to get your piece of the action if you want to get into a high-level dynasty fantasy football league.
Yeah, we got our butts kicked in week 1, so shout out Fantasy Pros. Shout out Kyle Yates at Fantasy Pros for whipping our butt in week 1. But we got a good start on Thursday night with Nick Chubb, so we're in good shape. Hey, so Michael Price wants to know, starting running back 2 for this week, David Montgomery or Frank Gore? And it's a good question because I actually have another question in regards to David Montgomery as well. So what do you think, Steve?
Oh, let's see. I'm out on anything Jets. I don't know. I'm gonna go.
That might be the simplest answer there is right there.
I'm gonna go David Montgomery here. Chicago plays. Who does Chicago play this week? Maybe Detroit.
No, Chicago plays. The Giants.
The Giants. Yeah. I'm gonna go David Montgomery here. I think he's still a little banged up. Maybe still be on a snap count, but nothing that Tariq Cohen's gonna steal away from him. Frank Gore, I don't know. It's Adam Gase. I got absolutely no love for Adam Gase.
None.
Just to name Frank Gore your starting running back. I mean, that's where you're stuck there for me. Is you got Frank Gore, you got Kalen Ballage, and LaMichael P. Ryan. Flip a coin. Who knows? If Frank Gore gets downhill, maybe he can rip off a few average 4 yards a carry if he can just keep grinding it out. But I just don't like. I don't like the Jets situation at all. I'm staying away from everything the Jets except for Chris Herndon.
That's where we're at already in week 2. Starting running back 2 question involves Frank Gore. That's where we're at already. And so for me, I think I'd go. I'm leaning David Montgomery as well. For if Frank Gore wore a different jersey, maybe I'd be considering. Because you gotta
remember, David Montgomery was still a top talent coming out. He showed flashes as a rookie, and then we thought this was going to be the year. Okay, he's going to put it all together, and he's coming in, a little banged up without a preseason, without anything else. I think the talent's there. It's just, can the coach and staff get him the ball, get him in space, and find a scheme that works for him? I think the biggest issue for David Montgomery right now, and I hate to say it because he played well, but Mitch Trubisky. You know what I mean? He played well last week, got a few touchdowns, but I think that's the issue for David Montgomery. I don't think that anybody is scared of Mitch Trubisky. I mean, he can't throw the ball to the left, so all they have to do is, they don't have to stack the box. They don't have to sit back. They can stack the box almost every play single coverage on the outside. Sure, if Allen Robinson beats you, he beats you. But other than that, that's the only guy they really have to lock down. Anthony Miller isn't really a threat to me yet. I think he also has some emerging talents, but it's not quite there yet. So I still like David Montgomery if I'm going up against Frank Gore this week in week 2.
Yep, same. I would be on the same board. So on that same line of thinking, we actually had a couple questions off of Twitter. One from Angelo _fantasy. By the way, if you don't follow that guy, you're missing completely out. He actually has a whole website that is unbelievably killer in regards to just video breakdowns, visual breakdowns of every single player that you can think of, especially these the young cats, these Debbie guys, which we're going to need a ton of help with come the offseason. So anyways, from Angelo_fantasy wants to know, I know where we're going, but I'm going to ask anyways, Shenault versus Montgomery in the flex.
Yeah, I like me personally. I like Shenault. I like the asset that he brings as a player. You know, he can line up all over the field. I don't have the exact numbers on where he lined up. I'm sure that's an easy find, but he doesn't just line up as a receiver. He lines up as an X. He lines up split in, split out. He lines up in the backfield. He can do all sorts of things. He caught a touchdown. I think he had like 33 yards and a touchdown, something along those lines in his first game. That's not bad. I'd take that out of a rookie all day long, and he's just going to mold. He's going to be that player that's going to mold into an offensive system. And once that coaching staff can find what his niche is and get him the ball in space, get him open and let him be himself, I think that's where he's really going to explode. And he is facing Jacksonville's facing Tennessee, I believe, this week, which is going to be a tougher defense. But I like it. I think Gardner Minshew. I still like it there. I think Gardner Minshew is going to have to. I think they're going to be trailing, so I think they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more as well. But yeah, definitely, I'm going to go Shenault. What do you think? Give me your.
Well, I think you're right on track. I think if we're even discussing Montgomery versus Gore, we have to be leaning Shenault over Montgomery. Just what I expect, and even from week one, and what we were kind of expecting from the Jaguars in general, kind of came true a bit in week one in regards to their usage of Shenault is going to be everywhere. He played everywhere in Colorado. He's going to play everywhere in Jacksonville. He even had a Wildcat install package as well. So caught a touchdown. Looks like he's going to be a legit weapon for Minshew, and Minshew looked great. I mean, Minshew was like 19 for 20, bro. Like, it looks like there's a concerted effort at least to go towards Shenault. And DJ Chark is always going to get the number one corner. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. Tennessee, Corey Davis abused, the Tennessee Titans were abused in the passing game on Monday Night Football. So I think if you look at what potentially Shenault could do with his size, I think that he could be a body catcher, at least in the end zone, and is going to be a tough guy to tackle in the red zone. So I'm all about Shenault this week, and I think
I just love his floor. I love his floor.
He's such a running back floor because of where he's going to be used.
Catch a touchdown. They could be from the 2 yard out, and they can be like, you know what, we're feeling Shenault right now. Let's get him a goal line carry. You know, he's the same size as Zeke. We've said that multiple times. It's there. I love it. And as much as I have confidence in David Montgomery, season long or career long, I think right now in this week I'm going to lean towards Shenault.
Yeah, they should be easing David Montgomery back in, right? Like that would be the expectation here. They're not going to trot him out there and give him the ball 25 times. It doesn't really seem like a smart strategy coming off of a groin injury.
And it's only a matter of time. Like Mitch Trubisky throws 3 interceptions, they're down by 25 points,
right.
and
Dave Montgomery's out.
Yeah, you got Tariq Cohen in there catching passes out of the backfield.
Yeah, who thinks he's a bulldozer now? He wants to. He's talking about how he's going to truck people. So that'll be interesting to see. All right, so we got another one from Twitter at Toronto FF8. That's Dave. Goes with Dave there. Chase Edmonds or Jordan Reed in a half-point PPR.
Ooh, Jordan Reed.
Jordan Reed sighting, baby.
Yeah, Jordan Reed or Chase Edmonds in a half-point PPR. Whew. Dave, I hope it's not a league that I'm in with you, because I don't know what answer to give you here. Jordan Reed, I guess what?
Give your best advice.
Yes. Signed with San Fran. Let's see. Signed with San Fran. I think the only way he even got a few catches last week is because George Kittle was out. I don't know if George Kittle has been officially ruled out yet or not. I think he's going to be a game-time decision. Even if he is, it's not going up against the Jets defense, which is horrible. And Chase Edmonds. You know what? Give me Chase Edmonds. This week. Jordan Reed.
Running back one in Arizona.
Yeah, Jordan Reed. I don't know why I'm like. I guess the reason I was questioning myself more or less is because Kenyon Drake is still there. He's still there to just take carries away from Chase Edmonds. But you're right, the talent's there. Jordan Reed, I think, is gone. I think he's done. He got lucky by having George Kittle be out this past week, and
don't forget about Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley is another tight end for
yeah. I'm definitely Dave. I'm going Chase Edmonds here. Just in that high-powered offense, they're going to be running the ball a lot. They're going up against Washington, though, who looked again. It was a weird situation, but they played very, very well. They're young. They have a lot of young talent in that front eight.
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, it was a smash like Chase Edmonds, but I'd pick Chase Edmonds over Kenyon Drake, so it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I know that's like super like hot take or whatever, but like I legitimately, especially in Dynasty, I'm taking Chase Edmonds over Kenyon Drake at price. Second one from the same guy at Toronto, FF8. Dave, also a great follow. One of the will help you with anything, and don't be afraid to slide into a DMs, doing that kind of stuff. He's a great guy, absolutely great guy. Same kind of situation here. I know where I'm leaning: Jordan Reed, Traquan Smith, or MVS. Full point PPR this time. Valdez-Scantling.
I guess I'm just very, very curious. This must be like
that's got to be a deep one.
75 starting spots on the roster. Because,
if you're rolling out Traquan Smith, man.
If these are players that you have to start and you have to sneak in there,
MVS, bro. There's no question to me. There's no question with the volume that they're going to be passing, and obviously he's trying to continue to develop trust with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be on a tear this year. What I watched week one looked like Aaron Rodgers is not playing around. Like Aaron Rodgers is there to solidify himself. Say, Jordan Love, hang out there with the clipboard, their guy for another couple of years, my man.
And Equanimus St. Brown, I think, just got ruled out as well. Not that that's like.
Did he?
I think so. Not like that's let me get MVS in here. But again, why am I even questioning Jordan Reed or Traquan Smith? Traquan Smith, it's one of those situations you talked about. Why chase Traquan Smith because Michael Thomas is out?
Yeah.
Sure. Could he have a big week? By all means, he could. By all means, Drew Brees could throw 3 touchdowns to him. He could. But the matchup's not there.
Missing out. Like roll the dice and like it's just at the end of the day, like I'm comfortable. I'm more comfortable with saying, well, the guy I left on the bench outscored him, and the process at this point was worth the risk of losing out on the results. Like there's just the likelihood that either of those outscore MVS has got to be so significantly small.
So here's another one in the chat here. At least getting to some players that should be in a starting roster. Sorry, Dave. But we got Keenan Allen, Courtland Sutton, Corey Davis, assuming everyone will play 2 of the 3 this week. So that's a tough one. I think that's a tricky one there.
No A.J. Brown.
No A.J. Brown in Tennessee, going up against a shaky Jacksonville defense.
Do they throw enough, though? Do they throw enough? That's the
Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton is going up against a very, very tough Pittsburgh defense, coming off of not playing last week as a late scratch with a young quarterback in Drew Lock. Tough situation there. And then you got Keenan Allen, who I absolutely love Keenan Allen. So I'm gonna lock Keenan Allen in as 1, just because there's a lot of things I like in Keenan Allen. He's the primary target there. No matter who's quarterback, I mean, obviously it's still Tyrod Taylor. I like the situation we saw last week. Mike Williams and Hunter Henry had tons and tons of targets and receptions and yards. And I don't think it can be like that. I don't think it's going to stay like that. They locked up Keenan Allen and it opened up the field for everyone else. I think they're going to have to, if Mike Williams is healthy, they're going to have to give help there. He's a very talented.
Casey's missing the top 3 corners.
Yeah.
Suspensions and injury. So Keenan Allen usually does well versus the Chiefs. I'll give him that. Like, it's hard for me, like as a as the background shows. I'd be like, you should start Keenan Allen. But I'm also trying to give good fantasy football advice here. And I think trusting Corey Davis again seems risky. Cortland Sutton coming off of injury, it's worrisome as well. And then aren't they playing? They're playing Pittsburgh, right?
That's
a terrible matchup.
Let's lock in Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I think Keenan Allen has got to be the play here. Matchup alone.
Right. So this is a tough one here. So Cortland Sutton against Pittsburgh's defense, not playing week 1. And Corey Davis against Jacksonville without A.J. Brown.
Man, I'll roll with Cortland Sutton on this one.
I'm
have a tough time believing in Corey Davis, man. I just have a tough time. He looked really great. I will give everyone that's been on the train of Corey Davis, the few that are remaining, I'll give him credit. Congratulations. That was a very, very good game from Corey Davis. I'm going to roll with Cortland Sutton, though, on this one.
No, I think I'm with you here because Cortland Sutton is going up against Pittsburgh, which we all know played very, very well in this last week. Yes, they're playing the Giants. Right? The Giants? Now I'm losing my mind. And they shut down Saquon Barkley. So here's my question. Were they dominant because they were trying to shut down Saquon Barkley? Are they going to try to do the same thing to Melvin Gordon now that Phillip Lindsay is out? Or is it going to open up all of it a little bit together? You're not going to have Minkah Fitzpatrick come underneath and help in the run game, which is going to open up a little bit more. Jerry Jeudy can have. I mean, I'm taking Jerry Jeudy over. Go ahead. I don't know, Sterling Shepard. Who else is in New York? So there's going to be a little bit more, and then you got to deal with we can kind of put Evan Ingram and Noah Fant in the same tier, I think. So that's pretty much a wash. But I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is the game changer in this question, and I think he's going to have to do a little bit more in the receiving game than the run game, which is going to open up more alleys for Sutton. And I just don't trust Corey Davis either. He had a good week, but that totals. So he had 108 yards, something like that in week 1.
Yeah.
Which is 65% of what he had last year.
Yeah. So. I mean, if he does it again, I grant it is Jacksonville. But if he does it again, now we might be talking. I know it'll be without A.J. Brown.
It's going to be a Devontae Parker year 6 breakout.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I need to see it again before I'm willing to put it in a situation. It's a good. That's a really good situation to be in. I know people don't like to be in these situations where you have to make these decisions, but to be in a situation where you have 3 starting wide receivers right now that could potentially, 2 of the 3 could potentially significantly outperform your matchup is a good spot to be in, personally. All right, so let's get to our own here, picks and bricks. Let's get into it. Before we do that, I will have you guys listen to a word from our sponsor.
Are you tired? Hey guys, I wanted to take a second and talk about our sponsor, Thrive Fantasy, the up-and-coming fantasy sports app where you can take your prop bets into the DFS style. It's a pretty sweet little thing, so make sure you guys head over to thrivefantasy.com or check out their app. Use promo code SQUIB, that's SQUIB, when you sign up today, and you'll receive an instant $20 match on your first deposit of $20 or more. You can download the Thrive Fantasy app at the App Store or on the Play Store by visiting their website at www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up to prop up today.
Boom, Thrive Fantasy, baby. A lot of good stuff. We have probably some prize picks that you're staring at right here where you pick the over-unders on actual fantasy scores. Can really win some big money there, up to 10 times your entry. And then you got a good old Thrive Fantasy where you're, prop betting, essentially, setting a prop betting lineup and playing against your peers, which is a cool little twist on a DFS situation. So love both of our paying sponsors here. Obviously, we have promo codes for both. So if you do try to check either of those out, would highly advise you to use the code so that you can get some free entries and some free money. Free money is always good. All right, Steve, what do you got here? What's our first starting quarterback for you? What's your first pick at quarterback?
All right, so my first pick this week, I'm going to go back to that same game I just talked about. I'm going to go with Dwayne Haskins. For me, Dwayne Haskins is going to be a sneaky play, and it's going to be someone that that a lot of people are still questioning, is he going to be in my starting lineup? Is he not going to be in my starting lineup? And he's going up against an Arizona defense that ranks 17th overall, 16 against the run, 19 against the pass. Obviously, this is only 1 week's worth of data that we're dealing with here. But granted, I mean, that's better than what they were last year in a full season. So their defense looks a little bit better this season, but it's still not the best. And there's going to be a lot of negative things that may push Dwayne Haskins out of your mindset here. So the game total is actually 48 points, which I love.
Pretty good number there.
I love that there's going to be, it's 47.5, which, 48 in real life here. But the implied total for Washington is only 21. So to me, that means they're going to be behind. They're going to be losing. They're going to be passing the ball, much like they did against Philly when he turned around and had a great fantasy game. I think out of those 21 points that Vegas is projecting them to have, they're all going to be passing touchdowns. I don't see Peyton Barber falling in the end zone 2 times like he did last week. I think they're going to need to keep up with Kyler Murray. They're going to need to keep up with DeAndre Hopkins. And, their defense is playing pretty good. The defense played pretty well last year. And like I touched on, Chase Young came in, got his first sack. They got Sweat on the outside, Montez Sweat. They got a couple young guys that are playing pretty well. I really like what Dwayne Haskins can bring. And to add with his rushing floor, just a few attempts gets him that extra points needed to be a starting quarterback. So I actually have Dwayne Haskins as my 7th overall quarterback coming into this week's on the consensus rankings.
I like it. Yeah, consensus rankings. The link will be in the comments on YouTube there for sidelinesquib.com, where all of our team has their weekly rankings. We'll try to do that every single week, where you can you hop on there when you're making your tough decisions on your weekly starts and sets and kind of compare where we are for the week on certain guys. So, I'm with you. Dwayne Haskins is a nice play, especially DFS. You touched on that in another previous episode with your core plays for DraftKings. Love Dwayne Haskins at his price this week, and especially, but even in weekly formats, Dwayne Haskins could be a viable starter here if you're running into a tough matchup elsewhere. Could be a sneaky play for sure, big time. And obviously, I love Terry McLaurin. So any positive things towards Terry McLaurin, I'm all about. And you're right, the running game situation is going to be very sporadic, and so I would trust that Dwayne Haskins is going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. I do want to touch on something I talked about last night on Twitter, only because you bring it up. Touchdowns are worth more than a bunch of garbage time yardage. So chasing quarterbacks that are going to be chasing bad quarterbacks that are going to be in situations where they're behind based on Vegas totals or Vegas implied spread is not exactly a great strategy. Or at least you shouldn't have the high expectation that they're going to just blow their number out of the water. Because scoring touchdowns is still going to be the most efficient and highest ceiling scoring for a quarterback. So keep that in mind. But I do think Dwayne Haskins, to your point, the 21 points should come through the air. Even if it's a rushing touchdown, it could easily be Dwayne Haskins a rushing touchdown. So I'm with you. For me, my start this week will be Daniel Jones, which is funny because I picked a brick last week on Daniel Jones. This isn't an overreaction. This is just straight up. Honestly, I like what I saw, and the matchup is nice. So he threw 280 yards, 2 touchdowns versus Pittsburgh. Okay, and they're going to be a much better defense than what they face overall through the season, and especially this week. Chicago has a very big name brand defense, but they allowed the 27th most yards per pass attempt last week, gave up 300 and a touchdown last week. And I think this is a good spot for Daniel Jones to potentially carve him up, hit him for a couple, if he gets anywhere near that 300 mark and puts up 2 touchdowns, and you're in a pretty good spot on a weekly standpoint. So for me, Daniel Jones is my start this week.
I mean, I like it. That's another one there. It's, man, Darius Slayton showed up. I love that.
He can ball, bro. He was one of my picks as far as guys that can that are on the cusp of breakouts. Like him, Marquise Brown, guys like that are very they're tied to their quarterback play. They're tied to the gameplay, obviously. So for Marquise Brown, even more so, because if it's a run heavy defense, a run heavy game, which most of them should be, his impact is probably less than what Darius Slayton's potential floor could be, because we expected them to be throwing more often, even with having Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is an elite pass catcher. So Darius Slayton, man, he did have a really, really nice game and should be in line to have another nice game this week. For a sit at the same position at quarterback, I think I'm gonna be a little bit contrarian here. Just to highlight, we are talking. The reason we're not saying start Aaron Rodgers this week is because that's pretty obvious. We're still trying to make sure that we're picking guys who potentially would look like they wouldn't finish out of the top 12 of their position, but could, and we are picking them to do so. And conversely, on bricks, we're saying guys who are consensusly picked to finish in the top 5, 10, 12 at their position potentially are not. And this week, I think it's Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson versus Baltimore implied total of 22.5, so similar to Haskins total. But I do think that the last game versus Baltimore was not good for Deshaun Watson. Okay, he put up 3.9 fantasy points versus Baltimore last time they played. Threw for 169 yards, was sacked 6 times, and had 12 rushing yards. He didn't look. I shouldn't say he didn't, but the Houston offense didn't look good versus the Chiefs. They don't get any breaks here with Baltimore and their front seven, what they're going to be able to do as far as create havoc. I think there's plenty of opportunities at interceptions. I think he's going to have trouble moving the ball to get into scoring range. So I do think there'll be some yards to accumulate at the end of the game. But again, if I'm investing in Deshaun Watson to start him this week, obviously if that's my only option, that's what I'm rolling with. But if I have another similar option like a Daniel Jones, I would be playing Daniel Jones over Deshaun Watson this week in a weekly format.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation you are. I'm fading Carson Wentz this week against the Rams. I just don't like the situation. I don't like, with Miles Sanders back, I think that helps a little bit. I think it takes some pressure off of him. But he just doesn't look comfortable. I feel like he's really pressing the situation. To have a 17-point lead, and granted, you can't chalk it up all to his play. Because the defense obviously needs to be stopping, but the defense played okay. He had those 2 interceptions that were, visually the same play. It was an out route that he knew where he was going before he threw the ball, and 2 young receivers stepped in front of the pass. I mean, I'm talking rookies. So he just doesn't look comfortable. It looks like he's pressing. Zach Ertz, I don't know. You probably don't get coverage of that game out there. But he just looks pissed off. I mean, obviously the contract talks. There was rumors and reports saying that he was fighting with ownership before the game, out in the field. He just looks. Yeah, he caught the touchdown, great. But he just looks pissed off. His whole demeanor, his attitude. When something I forget, he got overthrown one play, or a ball was a little bit outside. While Wentz was under pressure, and he's shaking his head and he's really distraught about it. Whereas in the past, he's up. He was like Travis Kelce. You know what I mean? He's up. He's bouncing around. He's having fun. He just doesn't look like he's having fun out there, and it sucks because he is a very talented receiver or tight end, and this contract dispute is really getting to his head. So, yes, Miles Sanders coming back will help a little bit, but with the offensive line struggles, the wide receiver issues, I'm going to fade Carson Wentz. I don't think he lands in the top 12 this week.
And Lane Johnson going back is a huge, huge deal for Carson Wentz in regards to pressure and what they should be expecting. But I agree with you. I think Carson Wentz would be is an okay sit this week. I do think the passing game will have a little bit more success than they did last week, but I can't argue your logic. The offensive line is going to need to show me that they're better than what they played last week, and that's going to be tough to do.
Tough matchup too.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to do in that matchup. So for me, if you're going to sit Carson Wentz, I think it's another good week to do so, matchup alone. So who is your running back pick, Steve?
So running back, another guy that I touched on in my DraftKings core, and it's just someone that I was trying to go a different way, but it's just there. Ronald Jones is there. A lot of people aren't still having him in his starting lineup because of Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette will eventually take over that backfield. But just Ronald Jones coming out of USC, everyone was high on him. Everyone was drafting him early. Everyone really liked his gameplay, and he looks even bigger and stronger They're playing against Carolina, which is the worst defense in the league, been the worst defense in the league against running backs for the last 3 seasons, finishing in dead last. And they're looking at a very high-scoring game where they are favored by almost double-digit points coming into the matchup. It's going to be very run-heavy. Tom Brady had a bad week in week 1. I think he's going to start off hot. He's going to prove to Bruce Arians, like, yes, I'm your guy. This is why you brought me in here. Stop saying I made poor decisions. I know I made poor decisions. Score a couple touchdowns through the air. Potentially this is where Mike Evans or OJ Howard comes in again with Chris Godwin being out. And then bam, then it's the Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette show. And as long as Leonard Fournette's playing well, as long as Ronald Jones is playing well, he's going to keep Leonard Fournette off the field just based off of, if you want to call it seniority to the team.
I love it. We didn't talk about this, but Ronald Jones is my pick this week as well. So that's good. That's good. Mostly for because the obvious plays are right there in front of everyone. Barkley is a must play. Zeke is a must play. Derrick Henry is a must play. Aaron Jones is a must play. So it's like outside of the obvious choices, who we got here. And Ronald Jones, who a week ago, last week, it wouldn't have been so obvious. And I think week 1 was a very good indicator of what we can expect from a usage standpoint. There are 4 things you want to look for in a running back that is conducive to success when it comes to picking them to start that week. It's workload, expected workload, touchdown potential, pass game involvement, and matchup. And aside from workload, I think all the other 3 are definitely there for Ronald Jones. And workload, at least in game 1, seems to be favoring Ronald Jones as well. But the matchup is, like you said, it's too tasty. The Panthers' run defense has given up over 100 yards and 2+ touchdowns to opposing running backs in every contest since 6 weeks, the last 6 weeks plus last week. So in 7 straight, they've given up 100 yards and 2+ touchdowns to running backs. They've also allowed 5.2 yards per rush last year, which was the most in the NFL. So for me, I think Ronald Jones is just too good of a player, as well as in too good of a matchup to just ignore at this point. They just gave up. Carolina just allowed Josh Jacobs to run wild on them. And Ronald Jones got 13 carries in the first half whenever it was still close, right, versus New Orleans. So in the event that you would expect that it's either close and or Tampa Bay is in the lead, that would continue with Ronald Jones. It would have even more of a rush game volume. And he had a 15-yard catch. This won't show up in the stat sheet or box score from last week, but he also had a 15-yard catch from that was called back on penalty as well. So involvement in the passing game, touchdown potential, matchup is obviously a plus, and we can expect the workload, hopefully at this point, to be swaying towards Ronald Jones and not towards Leonard Fournette or Shady McCoy. I'm all on board with Ronald Jones this week. Great call on this one.
Yeah, well, since we had the same guy there and didn't even talk about it, I'll let you go ahead and shoot first for your brick here. Who are you staying away from at the running back position for your starting lineup come tomorrow?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to jump on Adrian Peterson this week, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to be the guy who jumps on recency bias. I think the game script for Detroit early on in the game was perfect for Adrian Peterson. It was exactly what they needed it to be, and it played right into using him and then being able to ease both Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift into the game. But when it mattered most and the game was on the line, they did try to get DeAndre Swift, and DeAndre Swift had a game-winning touchdown dropped in the end zone. So I don't think that same game script is going to line up, at least early on in the game, for Detroit versus Green Bay this week. And as they're heavy underdogs, they're 6-point underdogs versus Green Bay. I just think that Adrian Peterson isn't the pass-catching back, so they need to be in positive game script and or being at least close. So for me, I think it's an easiest fade of Adrian Peterson. I think people will be too eager to say, oh, he's the guy to own in Detroit, or he's the guy to play in Detroit. And I think it can easily be – it's going to be a nightmare for most people in regards to which one to play. And this week, I don't think it's Adrian Peterson. I think it's either of the other two. And if you put a gun to my head and made me choose, I think I'd pick DeAndre Swift.
I love Kerryon Johnson, and it sucks, but I'm with you. Yeah. I think it's DeAndre Swift's time. I think I think it's going to be a lot sooner than I want it to be. But DeAndre Swift is one hell of a talent. So I'm kind of sticking with the same game script you had. It was tough because someone in the chat asked a question earlier about Courtland Sutton, and I was trying to answer the question without giving away who I don't like, and that is Melvin Gordon. I do not like Melvin Gordon this week at all. He's going to be an increased role now that Philip Lindsay was ruled out, which is going to pop a lot of eyes and like, okay, we know what he did when he was in San Diego. Is he going to be able to do that in Denver with better offensive play and young talent around him? And we just saw Pittsburgh shut down Saquon Barkley. I think it's going to be very similar. I think that they know that Melvin Gordon's going to be the guy they need to stop. I think they're going to leave it up to the young quarterback, much like Daniel Jones. They're going to leave it up to Drew Lock. They're going to say, hey, Drew Lock, beat us. Try to beat us. The defense is playing well. TJ Watt and that linebacking crew, they're all over the field. I don't know if you saw his interception last week where he was blitzing. He got about 3 or 4 feet behind the line, couldn't get past, dropped back into coverage, and called a slant for interception. He's talented.
Yeah.
And they're playing well. They mesh well together. It's almost that steel curtain like they used to be. I get it. It's week 1. Tell me, Steve, slow your roll, hit the brakes a little bit. I get that. But I see a very similar situation in having 2 teams that has Saquon Barkley, Melvin Gordon, Drew Lock, and Daniel Jones, both second-year young quarterbacks. I think it's going to be the same situation there. And I don't like it. I don't like the play unless Melvin Gordon comes out here and catches double-digit passes out of the backfield. I do not see him being top 12.
And like you said, we talked about earlier, Courtland Sutton being back, which should limit those pass opportunities as well. The target funnel expands, and I think you're right. I think it'll be a long day for Melvin Gordon. Also, he has fumbling issues, which we don't talk about enough. The guy literally fumbles. I feel like every time I turn a game on Melvin Gordon, there's a fumble. So it may be that he doesn't lose the fumble every time, but he fumbles a lot. And maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe that just is the perception that I'm receiving whenever I watch his games. But it's certainly what it feels like. So I'll toss it back to you then. Who's your pick at wide receiver?
All right, so I'm going here. I heard you earlier say you like Robert Woods.
Yes, but big Bobby Woods, Bobby Trees. I think he's a must start though for most people. I think he's where you draft him. I think most people are starting him.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to go to Cooper Kupp. I also think he may be. He's going to be on a lot of people's starting lineups. I think Cooper Kupp. The reason I have him in this segment here is because I think after what we saw last week and what he didn't do last week, people might fade him a little bit. And I just want to say don't, not yet. The Eagles defense is very, 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 very good against the run. They're very good against the run. They have been for a while. Their pass defense, not so much. And this is one of those ones where I'm looking back historically where, sure, they start off this season being 7th against the pass, but we know what happened. We saw what happened and how that kind of relates against how they get ranked against the pass defense. A lot of the scoring situations from Washington were coming from a short field because it was an interception from Carson Wentz. So they weren't driving 80 yards and it was killing the numbers of the defense. Yeah, sure, they gave up a couple touchdowns, but they weren't long plays. There was nothing going against there. So going back historically, the Eagles defense really is not good against the pass, and they didn't add too much outside of Darius Slay.
Yeah,
if you don't throw towards Darius Slay's side, I like it. I think that's where Robert Woods is going to be. I think Darius Slay is going to be on Robert Woods, which is going to leave a lot of opportunity against some no-name secondary pieces and defensive backs to try to cover Cooper Kupp, who we know has a good rapport with Jared Goff. So I'm going to go to Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to sneak in the top 12 this week against that Philly defense, and I think it's going to he may even find himself in the end zone twice this week.
Ooh, there you go. 2 touchdowns. If that happens, we're in really good shape. I like the Rams offense in general. I think in most weeks we're going to feel very comfortable playing pieces of it. I don't want to be too overexposed to them, but I think if you have the right, like being in so many leagues at this point, I feel like I have a good mix of their weapons outside of the old Tyler Higbee. So outside of that, I think I've got
God,
a
I
good
hate
approach.
Tyler Higbee.
And Cam Akers look like trash too. So like those two guys who we faded all offseason did not have a good week one. Tyler Higbee had a decent week one. I'll give him that in regards to what I expect from Tyler Higbee. What most
Get him
people
outta
expect
here.
from Tyler Higbee, that was a shit show. But that is what I expect from Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp got more action in the 12 personnel that he did at the end of last year. I think it's going to continue. And so, yeah, I'm all about Cooper Kupp this week. I think it's a great play. But Robert Woods is the smash play for me. Wide receiver pick, name that you will soon know about. Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell, hottest name in 2019, going into 2019 for sure, or one of the hottest names going into 2019. Had a obviously injuries and whatnot going on in his rookie year, but this year primed for a breakout, looks like, especially with Philip Rivers and how often he likes to throw it and at least give his guy a chance, which we don't care about because we're not wanting them to win or give crap if they win. We just want them to throw the ball a lot or at least put up big numbers, and that seems like what they're going to do. Rattle off a couple things here in regards to Indianapolis. I almost made Philip Rivers a pick this week, but Daniel Jones just was too enticing. Paris Campbell, the Indianapolis Colts, threw 80% of their plays between the 20s and the first half were pass plays last week. 80% of them. So they want to throw the ball. They're going to continue to throw the ball. That now without Marlon Mack, they should be, if they want to utilize Nyheim Hines and they want to utilize Jonathan Taylor, I think at a two-back punch, it looks like they're going to continue to be able to throw the ball with Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. So neither one of those limit them. So I think they're going to continue to throw the ball. And the matchup. Everyone knows right at this point that the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers absolutely torched the Vikings defense, and the secondary did not play well. I don't expect them to all of a sudden play well in week 2. Vikings defense quarterback pressures. Give this an example. We all know Philip Rivers likes to throw the ball quickly. Good luck getting him on the ground if you're Vikings defense. Vikings defense quarterback pressures in week 1. 7 total for a defense. 7 quarterback pressures. Aaron Donald, Bud Dupree, TJ Watt all had 7 or more pressures on their own. The Vikings defense is not going to be able to get the quarterback in time, which leads to quicker passes, which leads to Paris Campbell hopefully catching some slants and some deep balls as well. Minnesota will be without Cam Dantzler, who was one of their only good players on defense last week. They ranked 28th in defense in week 1 via Pro Football Focus. And Holton Hill was the worst graded quarterback on Minnesota at 29.0, so he should be stepping into at least a role or a targeted cornerback that Philip Rivers is a smart guy. Philip Rivers should be attacking Holton Hill, while the only good corner that they should have here in Minnesota should be focused their attention on T.Y. Hilton. I would be turning my attention to whoever Paris Campbell is lined up against, which is a very terrible cornerback. So for me, Paris Campbell, I think I just made a case, should be in the top 12 wide receiver this week.
Yeah. Paris Campbell, I think definitely for dynasty purposes alone is going to be a guy. It's that Ohio State receiver that always gets overlooked. And that's why, just because what's going on with Michael Thomas, with Paris Campbell, they're always playing with these stud running backs, and it's the same thing. I'm tucking away KJ Hill. I'm tucking him away. Tuck him away now. If you can find him, go out, little sneak peek, go get KJ Hill and tuck him away somewhere in your taxi squad if he's available. Because you just these emerging wide receivers out of Ohio State just seem to happen every single year. And it's because you don't see their full potential at Ohio State because 1, they're either winning or 2, there's 3 other 4-star recruits as well as a 5-star recruit quarterback and running back on the field at the same time.
It's like the situation with T. Higgins. Like you touched on that when we were doing the offseason stuff. T. Higgins had like 90% or 80% of his production in the first half, actually the first quarter, right? Like something ridiculous because they got such big leads. They didn't even throw the ball anymore. That similar situations happen to Ohio State all the time. So the production numbers are just skewed. I mean, look at Terry McLaurin last year, situations like that. So Paris Campbell, KJ Hill, guys that definitely stashed in Dynasty. And then this week, I think Paris Campbell is a very viable wide receiver starter, and guys who have Michael Thomas on their roster, guys who have Chris Godwin on their roster, could easily have Paris Campbell on their roster, or very easily could get Paris Campbell off the waiver wire if they have time here this evening to snag him. So for me, Paris Campbell is an easy play this week, just one matchup alone. And then you have the added volume of passing from Philip Rivers. I think is an easy play.
So who are you staying? Since I already touched on who I was staying away from, who are you staying away from at the wide receiver position this week?
So I think like you touched on it a few minutes ago. I'm going to need to see it one more week before I believe it. So for me, I am staying away from Mike Williams versus the Chiefs this week. I know that he was peppered with targets and it seemed like that would be Tyrod Taylor's favorite player last week, but I think they're going to make massive adjustments from their game plan from last week to this week. I think they were trying some stuff against Cincinnati, something that they wanted to do, but they know who they're playing against the Chiefs. They know who they're playing. I think it's one of those deals. And the Chiefs last year ranked allowed the second fewest points to wide receivers in 2019 in terms of fantasy points. So if you're banking on Mike Williams having a big blowout game, I just don't see it. The rookie corner played extremely well for the Chiefs. I think people are going to overblow that they're missing corners. Tyrann Mathieu can cover. They have an elite scheme, and they're going to be able to pressure the quarterback. So I think they're going to make a concerted effort to get the ball to Keenan Allen because he was virtually ignored, as well as Austin Eckler in the passing game. I know Austin Eckler was a rushing had heavy rushing volume last week, but I think they're going to make it a little bit more 50-50. I think they're going to rely on his pass catching ability this week. And the Chiefs, it's well documented. They don't do well versus running back. So I think it'll be a very Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen type game. And you're going to need a touchdown or a big play from Mike Williams in order to really serve value. And in that instance, I'm going to fade Mike Williams.
No, I like that there. And I want to jump into our tight ends here, which I believe are the epitome of picks and bricks, or at least on my side it is today. Before we do that, let's thank TrophySmack.com. They have been with us since the very beginning. TrophySmack.com. If you need a trophy, if you need something for your league, go to TrophySmack.com. Use code SQUIB. Get yourself a trophy, a belt, whatever you need. You type in code SQUIB, SQUIB, and you can get yourself a $60 championship ring for free with your purchase by using code SQUIB. That comes for anything you need it to. I know I have used it where I will host one league and commission one league that takes a trophy, and I'll commission another league that the winner gets a ring. But by all means, get your league to buy a trophy. Keep the ring for yourself. It's cool shit. Keep it. It's awesome. It's free. But go out and check them out. If anything, swing over to TrophySmack.com. Check out all their new products. They have stuff all the time. I love those guys over there. They help us out. We help them out. So looking for a trophy, there's no other place to go than TrophySmack.com. All right. Tight ends. This is like I said, the epitome of the picks and breaks for me, where I am going to say my pick, which is a tight end that should not be in the top 12 that is going to be, and vice versa for my brick. So I'll start it off right away by saying I think Chris Herndon will be inside. Okay, let me start off by saying if I could put Tyler Higbee as my brick every week, I would. But that would kind of defeat the purpose of this show.
It just like a running ticker at the bottom. Tyler Higbee is a brick this week. Tyler Higbee
and bam, we just lost 10 more viewers. All right. So let's go. Yeah, no, for real. Chris Herndon, though. A lot of people are not going to have him in because of this Jets offense and just this Adam Gase run team that everyone talks about. And trust me, I thought long and hard about this. I do not like anyone in a Jets uniform. But Chris Herndon is the only receiver, the only threat on that team at all. Sure, he might get extra coverage, but there is literally nobody else on the field for the New York Jets that's going to do anything. Even in last week when Jameson Crowder went off for 10 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown, Chris Herndon was still second on the team in all three of those statistics. Yeah. He's the only guy to throw to, and I think it's going to be the same way. Even with San Fran, very, very stout, very great defense. But you give me Chris Herndon all day, I think he sneaks in the top 12 this week with no one else to throw to.
Speaking of box score duds at the tight end position, or disappointing box scores. Evan Ingram. I present to you Evan Ingram. I mean, we touched on it with what we think the matchup is going to be versus Chicago. I think the Giants are in a really good spot here in regards to really putting up some points against Chicago. I genuinely think that. But anyway, so dating back to last week, Evan Ingram had 7+ targets, which makes it 7 of 8 games that he's played with Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, that he's had at least 7 targets. So the targets are what you're trying to get after here, especially at the tight end position. That means they're being heavily used. We already know that about Evan Ingram. When he gets the ball, and he's a very, very talented player, very, very good athletic player, giving him that many targets a game, I mean, he's going to break it. I mean, it's just the odds of that not happening are so slim. So for me, Evan Ingram is a must play this week. He ran the second most routes as a tight end in week 1 and also got 7 targets. Like, going to be very, very involved in this offense moving forward. And I think that they're going to be able to kind of exploit that in Chicago this week. I think Daniel Jones will find his man, Evan Ingram, pretty easily. And that's not necessarily more like, if you drafted Evan Ingram, you would expect that. But I think if you got starting to get cold feet in week 1 based on what you saw in prime time, I think I'm here to tell you, don't fret. Lock him and load him. Let's get him in there and then reap the rewards of staying true to what you believe. At tight end, man, I'm telling you, I didn't really have that many breaks this week. I really don't at the tight end position. I want to say Tyler Higbee like you every single week, so that's kind of an easy one. I want to say Hayden Hurst, but Hayden Hurst, I mean, he had a terrible week. And from a box score standpoint, at 3 catches, 38 yards, but he ran around on 45 of Atlanta's 56 dropbacks. 80% route rate, was 8th among all tight ends, and his 45 routes were the most of any tight end. So, like Evan Ingram,
I know, man,
was second most tight end routes. Hayden Hurst had the most routes. Now, if it's again back to Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, then we're looking at the 4th or 5th option with Hayden Hurst. So that's what gives me pause. But I do understand where people are at with trotting him out there. So I really don't have a brick at tight end. If anything, maybe Gesicki, just because the Miami Dolphins didn't really look that great. But they were playing against the Patriots. So at the end of the day, we'll see what that amounts to from Bill Belichick. But I really don't have a big brick situation. I think tight end, you can stream, you can do really, really well at that. But I think the must plays are pretty obvious. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram. And I think you're right on cue here with Chris Herndon. The target funnel is very, very narrow. And even though he's wearing a Jets uniform, Adam Gase is still on the sidelines, someone has to catch the football. So for me, I think you're right on cue here with Chris Herndon.
And man, I just want to touch on real quick about Hayden Hurst last week. The DFS guys and the DFS team at sidelinesweb.com, they nailed it. And they had the receptions, they had the targets, they had everything that Hayden Hurst just wasn't hauling them in. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, they got all the fantasy points needed. We still came away profitable with the lineup built DFS for Sideline Squib. But man, just imagine if Hayden Hurst did his thing.
That's how I feel about it. I would have popped so I pivoted off of Josh Jacobs last week, like in the one lineup that really did really, really well on FanDuel. You and I had like a ton of entries in both DraftKings and FanDuel because we won some tickets playing the NBA and MLB stuff leading up to the year. So it worked out really well for us. We got a lot of bullets to shoot in that Millie Maker for both sides. And at one point I was in second place in FanDuel late in the slate, so it felt pretty good. Ended up not winning that, so no one call me looking for money. I did not win $200,000 or $1 million last week, but it does refuel and re-energize and make you feel really want to go back out there and do it again, and kind of really hone in on your craft. And so I think Hayden Hurst is a sleeper pick in DFS as well, because people did get burned last week. But if they weren't paying attention to the actual game and just look at the box score, you would think he had a really, really bad game. And leading into the season, I didn't think he was going to really even be targeted. I thought it's really going to be a tough go of it. But he was targeted. He ran a lot of routes. That's his job in that offense. And I think that can be similar, especially in this matchup versus Dallas. It's a very tasty matchup. So definitely worth a dart throw. But Is what it is, man. We're all guessing. We're just trying to make educated guesses at the end of the day.
No, I hear you. And so hopefully some of our picks and bricks that we gave you this week will help correlate into helping you get your starting lineups ready for Sunday afternoon. We will have this posted. Obviously, you can check it out live. If you're watching live, you're watching it now. So thank all you guys in the chat. Thank everyone who hung out with us tonight, asked us a few questions. Thanks for everyone who interacted to Andrew's question on Twitter and gave us a few talking topics that hopefully sparked some interest and gave you what you needed as well. But like always, I'd like to thank all of our crew over at SidelineSquib.com, the DFS Docket. You can find their podcast under our RSS feed as well. And of course, Andrew, like always, it's been a pleasure. Go ahead and take everybody out if you'd like to.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you. We run this back every single week. We try not to miss, and this week we're right back at it. So hopefully we did give you guys some pointers, and we're gonna miss on a few, but hopefully we hit on more than we missed. That's the whole ideal here. As always, be a nice person, wear a mask, wash your hands, and good luck this week.
And we'll see you guys next week on the Sideline Squib.
Sideline Squib. It's a long time coming. Steve, Andrew, what say you? This is the sideline. Yeah. Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the sideline. Funny, it's my time then. Yeah. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the Squib, info stick up to your ribs. Chips be coming with that dip. Go ahead, put it to your lips. My oh